So for our final speaker tonight, I ask you to put your hands together and make all of the cheers and whoops for Simon Hall.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening, I'm Simon. As Trish kindly said, my background is sports psychology, or I probably ought to say I usually open up by saying that my background is sports psychology. But I learned a truth a few years ago. The truth is that sports psychology is completely the wrong term. It's really human psychology. And it took me an embarrassingly long time to realise that whatever applies to athletes applies to all of us. I have spent the last almost 30 years, you can tell by the grey hairs, can't you? Almost 30 years working with some of the best in the world champions, world record holders, Olympic medalists. And I've learned that whatever applies to us applies to them and vice versa. It absolutely makes no difference. They will all describe themselves as ordinary people who ended up becoming world class. Here are some of those that I've worked with over the years. Top left is Laura. She's a world champion squash player. In the middle is a nutter, an official nutter. His name's Andy. He ran 66 ultra marathons in 66 days to break a new world record. Top right, Anne, she's a nutter as well. She's a polar explorer, world record breaking polar explorer. Slightly more sensible, I suppose. Down in the bottom left is Kenny as a Michelin star chef. He used to have a place at Rockcliffe Hall. Anybody know Rockcliffe Hall? He's now up on the quayside. If you like good food, go and visit Kenny's restaurant. In the middle, Alan Hinks, another nutter. One of only a handful that have climbed all of the 14,000 metre peaks of all of the 8,000 metre peaks on Earth. And then a couple of interesting folk. James Hoffman, world barista champion. Did you even know there was a world barista championship? There is. James was world champion. Slightly more conventional, Chris, who lives in Yarm, just up around the corner, a double Commonwealth champion, double Commonwealth record holder. In the bottom right, Claire, 10-time world freestyle kayaking champion. She does somersaults in a kayak. Another nutter. And then a couple of teams that I've been working with over the last few years, like the Fiji Rugby Sevens team, world champions, and FC Bayern Munich. So loads, and I've learned an awful lot from them. One of the things I've learned is a fundamental truth about performance. The foundation for sustained high performance is health. Now, it's true that you can get some performance benefits doing some unhealthy things. You'll probably heard of performance enhancing drugs, like anabolic steroids, like ephedrine and things like that. They will give you a short-term boost. There are some less obvious performance enhancing drugs, which you might also know, things like caffeine. Heard of that one? Sugar, yeah, they're also performance enhancing drugs. And just like the others, they'll give you a short-term benefit, but long-term cost. You have to pay the cost. And usually it's long-term detriment that you get from those. So genuinely, the foundation for sustained high performance is health. That's true of mental health as well. And I'd like to share an example, a sort of case study of an athlete that I worked with, which shows how the two are linked. So back in October 2013, I was thrown a challenge. It was from an NFL franchise. We have a quarterback. He keeps throwing interceptions. Can you help? So I sat down with the quarterback. It was in a hotel lobby, over coffee. And I said, tell me what's going on. And he said, I kind of know I shouldn't really be throwing the ball. You know, it gets to that point. As it's leaving my fingertips, I'm thinking, oh, please, please, please don't let this get intercepted. And then it does get intercepted. He said, I know I really shouldn't be throwing it, but I keep throwing these balls. And interestingly, maybe not surprisingly, he started talking about pressure. He started talking about anxiety. He started talking about expectation. He started talking about lack of confidence, all those sorts of things. Now, many sports psychologists would have said, aha, I have the answer. Maybe you need some breathing techniques, because if you calm your breathing, maybe you feel calmer. Some might have said you need to visualize success. That's what you need to do. Some might have said you need to do some thought-stopping techniques, or maybe some affirmations. You need to sit there and go, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. Now, those aren't wrong answers, but they might not be the right answers. They might not be the right answers for this athlete, and they might not work when you put them right in the middle of that cauldron. right in the middle of that 80,000 seater stadium, when they know the game's on the line, they know all the cameras are on them, it may not work in that moment. And so to find the answer, you've actually got to know the person. So he started talking a little bit, and he started talking about pressure. Now, interestingly, I've got a kind of a unique view on pressure. Even if you ask a lot of sports psychology professionals to talk about pressure, they may use the words managing pressure. To me, it doesn't really work that way. I've come to understand that we can only experience pressure in one way, and that's to imagine it. Here's how it works. So normally when we feel pressure, it's because there's an outcome in the future. And what we do is we kind of paint these two pictures of the future. We've got the outcome we really, really want and the outcome we desperately don't want. And then we start tying ourselves emotionally to this outcome. We will feel happy if we get this one. We'll feel upset if we get this one. Most people go further than that and they start tying their self-worth or their identity to this. I'll think I'm good if we get this one. I'll think I'm a failure if we get that one. I'll feel good about myself if we get this one. I'll feel bad about myself if we get that one. And now we start to see where it comes from. It's the same with fear, I've come to understand. I learned that fear is also imaginary by taking on a rather stupid challenge myself. This challenge was to walk 100 miles in 24 hours. Don't ask me why I did this. And if you ever do, I don't suggest you ever do this challenge, it wrecks your knees. If you ever do it, you will have to walk through the night. So imagine I'm walking across open countryside, it's pitch black and I can hear some noises. What do you think went on inside my little bird brain? What do you think I thought those noises were being created by? I mean, probably in reality it was a badger, it was an owl or whatever. In my head it's a zombie. And I learned a couple of things that night. First one, you can never outrun your imagination. However quick you go, the zombie's coming just as quick. It's catching you. And you could sprint and it would still catch you. The other thing I started to think is, okay, it's not an actual zombie, is it? So it must be my imagination. So then I ran some little theories. Is that true of all fear? So here's one for you. You're swimming off the coast of South Africa. You can see a triangular fin coming through the water. The Jaws music is playing in your head. What are you scared of? The headline answer is you're scared of the shark. The truth is you're scared of what it might do. And what it might do is in the future. Here's how we know it's all about your imagination, because the only way you can ever experience the future is to imagine it. As human beings, we have no other way. Life experience, we have three ways. The future is through your imagination. The past is through your memory. And the present is through your senses and thoughts. And that's the whole lot. That's all we've got. So anything that's about the future has to be imaginary. So, if this is pressure, I said to him, what are you really scared of? What's the real problem here? So you throw an interception, big deal, the other player gets the ball, they score. I mean, like, we're carrying a bag of wind around. What's the big deal here? He said, my contract's up at the end of the season. I said, okay. And? He said, well, if I lose my contract, I'm going to lose a lot of other stuff. I said, like what? House, car, yeah. No, he said, the big things. Like my girlfriend. She doesn't really love me. She just loves me for being a quarterback. If I'm not a quarterback anymore, she's not going to hang around. And you see those people that call themselves my mates, they're not hanging around either. Because if I'm not a quarterback, they're not interested. He said, but it's bigger than that. I said, go on. He said, if I'm not a quarterback, I'm nothing. I am nothing. He said, I'm just a failure. I've got nothing else. And he said, it's not even like I've got nothing else to fall back on in a career. This is who I am. This is all. This is everything. His whole self-worth, his identity, everything was bound up in this. That's what he's really scared of. And it highlights why mental health is absolutely the foundation. Here's anybody seen the movie Cool Runnings? Yeah, Jamaican bobsleigh team. This is one of my favourite quotes. It comes from that movie. So this is John Candy, the late, great John Candy, who played the part of Irv, who was the coach. And Irv has a conversation with DeRice, who's one of the bobsleighers. And he says, DeRice, a gold medal is a wonderful thing, but if you're not good enough without it, you'll never be enough with it. This is the trap that people fall into. We need stuff, we need results, we need winning, we need medals, we need success, we need something to tell us that we're good enough. And that's where a hole appears. I call it the hole that exists where self-worth should be. If we have mental health, if we have really good, strong mental health, we have this solid foundation, we've already got that. We don't need the medals. We're already good enough. For the past couple of years, we've been recording a podcast. Tony, why doesn't this work when you press the button? Does it? Oh, look at that. We're been recording a podcast called the Demon Charmers Podcast. As I look around the room, I can see some people who have appeared on our Demon Charmers podcast. We've recorded quite a lot of episodes, all on mental health subjects. So we've got imposter syndrome in there, we've got procrastination, we've got overwhelm, we've got anxiety, we've got fear of failure, fear of trying, we've got all sorts in there. And at the end of, I think it was season 2, I was looking back through, what are the common threads? I did a little summary episode at the end of season 2. And there was one common thread that went all the way through all of these issues. I don't feel good enough. I don't feel like I am enough. That's at the heart of it all. That's that big hole that we need to fill, where self-worth should be. So how do we fill the hole? This is how I explain it. There are 3 interwoven strands of rope, which I'll get to in a minute because I forgot that this slide existed. It's been a long day. Interestingly, so I put this one up because Robert Waldinger is one of the world's greatest researchers on happiness. And interestingly, so at the bottom here, this is his TED Talk, Lessons from the Longest Study Ever Conducted on Happiness. The conclusion of that study is that relationships are really critical. Healthy relationships. Happiness is built on healthy relationships. And I picked that up and I said, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially if you consider our number one relationship in life, the one with ourself. Happiness, honestly, is driven by happiness with ourself. Can we look in the mirror and say, yeah, I quite like you. You're all right. You'll do. Happy. Yeah. Because if we do, we don't then need the medals or other people's approval or other people's adulation or whatever it is, because we're already happy. And if they happen to like us, that's great. And if they don't, that's not a problem. And if we win, that's brilliant. And if we don't, hey, we can come back again tomorrow. That happens if we've got this. So where does this come from? Oh, 3 interwoven strands of rope. That's where we were going, wasn't it? So what are these 3? This is simple stuff, but not easy. Knowing yourself, being yourself, liking, loving, and accepting yourself. Those are the 3 interwoven strands of rope. They're interwoven because you can't have one without the other 2. How could you ever know yourself if you weren't being yourself? If you're trying to be somebody else, you wouldn't ever know yourself. How could you? Because you're not being yourself. How can you like, love, or accept yourself if you don't even know who you are? And why would you be yourself if you didn't like, love, and accept yourself? So these 3 have to go together. They have to go together. There is no real one starting point, but I would say if you want a doorway in, knowing yourself is a pretty good one. Know yourself, become happier with who you are, then start being more comfortable in your own skin, be yourself. Now, what this recognises is that we're never the finished product. We might look at ourselves in the mirror and go, yeah, I like a bit of what I see, but maybe not all of it. That's okay, we can work on stuff. We can work on the bits of ourselves that we're not that happy with. I work on things, characteristics in myself all the time. Quite a few years ago, I thought, you're not that patient and you're not that tolerant. Let's work on those. And there's a little Swedish philosophy that sums up what all of this really means. It's lagom. The literal translation is not too little, not too much, just right. It means enough. We can adopt some of this. I am enough. I am enough. I can still get better. There's loads that I can work on. That's no problem. But right now, in this moment, I'm enough and I'm really happy with who I am. And if I want to work on a little bit, I can do that. That's absolutely fine. So if we can pair lagom, pair it, as in couple it, with another change in mindset, a little tweak. And this one is to redefine success. Our quarterback defined his success by throwing a bag of wind around. That's quite a fragile way to define yourself. And if the bag of wind goes in the right direction, phew, good, we're okay. If it doesn't, we're in trouble. What if we used a different method altogether? What if success wasn't built on what we attained, what we achieved, if it wasn't built on results, if it wasn't built on how big the bank account was or what car we were driving and all the rest of it? What if we completely used a different method? Years and years ago, I became aware that my mum and dad were proud of me for what I'd done. It really hit me when I published my first book and they said, "Oh, we're really proud of you, you published a book." And I thought, I'm the same person today as I was yesterday before I published it. I haven't changed. So it doesn't make sense anymore. And I decided I was going to use a different yardstick. I want to be proud of me for who I am, not what I do. Not the results I get, not the achievements, not the attainments, not whether everybody likes me, but for who I am. And I was absolutely determined that that was exactly what I was going to share with my girls as well. I don't care what results you get in your exams. I care about who you are. I'm proud of who you are. So, what if our quarterback started to use that? Imagine if we could as well. Imagine if we could build that nice solid foundation, that interwoven trio, those little strands of rope where we knew ourselves. We were ourselves. We were comfortable in our own skin. We liked who we were. We loved ourselves, accepted ourselves. We'd got a completely new definition of success based on being proud of who we are. And we understood fundamentally that, yeah, okay, we can get better, but we are enough. Imagine if we did that. At the end of all of these, I have a little plea to everybody. Please don't leave this stuff in the room. If any of that has made sense to you, please take it away, use it, weave it into the way that you think every day. Please use this stuff because that's where you get the benefit from it. If you walked away saying, yeah, that was quite interesting, you gain very, very little. If you use it, maybe it pays you back. On that basis, I'll say thank you very much.